Hello, music fans. Welcome back to my weekly segment called What's New 2023, where I talk about new albums that came out in metal, rock, and progressive music. Today, I'm talking about 5 albums that came out on July 28th, ranging from an album that sounds like old school death metal Opeth to 2 instrumental progressive metal albums with jazz fusion influences and a progressive rock album that has great female vocals and more. And I'll talk about them in my order of preference, starting with Vinsta and their album Freiweitn. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I believe it's Austrian. This is progressive melodic death metal. It's got acoustic and folk influences. It's the 4th album by this Austrian band. They started out as a folk project, but then got heavier and evolved into progressive death metal. And you don't see that happen very often. It usually goes the other way by starting out heavy, and bands usually soften over time. I think fans of Opeth will really like this release by Vinsta. It sounds a lot like Opeth back when they did death growls. They've also got a lot of violin in their music, so that gives them another added flavor that Opeth doesn't have. And they have mostly clean vocals, both male and female, but they also have a decent amount of harsh vocals. Some of the distorted electric guitar riffs on this album sound so evil and heavy like old Opeth, but then the folky passages are also very beautiful. This one, definitely my favorite of the week, and will probably make my year-end top 40. Excited to make that, and if you're excited to follow along with my music listening journey and to see my year-end list, hit that subscribe button. Next up, I'm going to talk about an instrumental progressive metal album by Arch Echo called Final Pitch. It's got some jazz fusion influences in it as well. It's the 3rd album by this American band. I saw them live opening for Haken. They were amazing and fun to see live. Amazing virtuosic playing, particularly on the keyboards and guitar. My favorite track on here is Illuminosity, which features a guest keyboard solo from Jordan Rudess of Dream Theater. The album is all instrumental except for one track, Final Pitch, which features some guest vocals. The music on here has both metal and jazz influences for fans of bands like Intervals, Polyphia, and Dream Theater. Next up, a very similar album to the Arch Echo one, released by a band called Nuclear Power Trio, called Wet Ass Plutonium, which is a hilarious title. This is also instrumental progressive metal, also has some jazz fusion influences. The difference here is they've also sprinkled in some Latin influences, and it's the 2nd album by this American band. They wear masks of Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-un, and they play instrumental music with a lot of virtuosic shredding from all members. If you're a fan of the Arch Echo album that I mentioned before this, I think you'll like this as well, similarly for fans of Intervals and Polyphia. But like I said, there's a few moments that have that Latin flair. Very funky, nice bass playing on here as well. I enjoyed it quite a bit. These 2, Arch Echo and Nuclear Power Trio, are 2 of the best instrumental albums, if not the 2 best instrumental albums I've heard this year so far. I just found them really fun and really bouncy and funky bass playing and great displays of virtuosity on guitar. Definitely check it out if that sounds to your taste. Next up, I'm going to talk about Karnataka and their album Requiem for a Dream, and this is progressive rock. It's the 6th album by this Welsh band. Very well performed female vocals on here, great guitar solos on here. The music and vocals have a lot of Celtic music influence, and the last song on this album is a 25-minute prog epic, which is the title track of the album. So check that out if that sounds interesting to you. And lastly, I'm going to mention The Fierce and the Dead and their album News from the Invisible World. This is kind of post-rock, but it's got some metal riffs in it. It's got psychedelic and spaciness, some progressive, alternative, and math rock influences as well. It's the 4th album by this band from the UK. Like I said, some albums sound almost metal. Maybe fans of Porcupine Tree would like this, but the music is usually very atmospheric, spacey, and psychedelic, almost like earlier Porcupine Tree and a lot of that Pink Floyd influence. Sometimes they bring out horns and saxophone for some solos that remind me of the saxophone solos on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. So check that out if that sounds interesting to you. And that's it. Those are the 5 albums that I checked out that came out on July 28th, 2023. Let me know what you think of these albums down in the comments. Let me know if there's anything else that came out recently in my wheelhouse or that you think I would like. And stay tuned until next time. Peace out.